Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollands High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Alright, welcome back. So we went ahead and created our egg, and you can see him sitting there smiling at us, bright and happy, a little on the little too happy side. He didn't come out too bad. There are some highlights. We could have done highlights on the tongue. We could have put the little darkness in the back with a little uvula kind of thing hanging down in the back of the mouth if you really wanted to. And for the tux, we could have done, um, like a full-blown tux. We could have done a bow tie and the little wings on the tux, little flaps that kind of come down. We could have done all that. You guys are welcome to do that. I didn't do that on this particular egg. But it came out, pretty decent enough for us to move forward and not be too complicated, What we can do now is now that we have our little egg, we can start making the props because we want to make everything proportionate. We don't want to have a stool that's way too big for the egg or a microphone that's too huge. So now that we have him in here, we can go ahead and just start making the stool. So create, come down to polygon primitives, and what do you think would make a good stool? We could start with a sphere, a cube, a cylinder, cone, but I think a stool is mostly a cylinder because the top of a stool, don't be buggy, the top of a stool is cylindrical, so I'll just hit a cylinder, and that'll drop down here in the center. And I'm going to, real quick, hit my W key, and I'll just drag this right under Eggy so that I can get an idea of how big the top of this stool is going to be. Double click on our little channel box icon, and under radius, I'm just going to select radius, come out into the middle, and hold the middle mouse button. I'll just drag this out, and that looks like a size that would fit Mr. Eggy. So that will be, I'll say 22. It's a good size. And what I'm going to do is add some curvature to this thing. So down here under subdivisions and height, and actually before the height, let me make the height just a little bit taller. I'll do, how's 10 look? 5's better. And then inside my height subdivision, I'm going to do 2. And what this will let me do is it'll give me one extra cut of detail because I'm going to scale the top of this down to kind of give it some curvature. If I push 3 on the keyboard, whoops, if I push 3 on the keyboard, you can see what it could look like if we had smoothed it, but we're not going to do a smooth group. I accidentally put an extra cut in there. So under height, subdivisions, 2. So what I can do from here is you can do it a few different ways, but I'm going to go into face mode, so that's F11. I will hit Q to get rid of my little widget because otherwise the widget will be in the way. I'm going to select these pieces. Very carefully select. Hit R on the keyboard to bring up the scale tool, and I will just scale this in using the little middle scaler. And there's the top of a stool. Really simple, no super complex modeling in this area. Now what I want to do, because I'm OCD about working with triangles, they are the simpler solution for a lot of things, but I am going to be getting rid of them. So just like we did with Eggy, I'm going to look down my center line, and right here I have my big dark grid line right on the center. So I know this is my center line. So off from my center line, I'm going to grab this one, and then every other. And I will delete those off. Same thing down at the bottom, grab my center, so just off my center I'm going to go to the left, and every other. Okay, So there's our top of our stool. And now what we can do is create the legs of our stool. So I'm going to hit go into object mode. I'm going to select this. I'm going to make sure I name this stool top. Hit the W key to bring up my moving widget. I will put this right under Eggy's butt to see about how high I want my stool. I want my stool to actually be taller than that, so I'm going to make it, I'm going to pull it inside of Mr. Eggy just a little bit, and I'm going to put Eggy on top of that, because he's going to make a big leap in the animation. He's going to go boing, boing, and then one big boing to get on the stool. So make it a little tall, that's fine. So the same thing we did before, we're going to create a cylinder, create polygon cylinder, and that's going to drop down here at our origin. I'm going to just pull this back so it's under our stool. Radius is probably okay. I'm going to hit the height. Let's try 10 high. Oh, that's not high enough. 20. It's not quite high enough. 30. Let's see, what is your height? Your height is 32, so that's probably close enough. I'll pull this up to there. If you ever have a problem with your camera moving around an object, make sure the object is selected, just hit the F key. It'll frame up on it to make it a little bit nicer. So in comparison to the stool and the height, I'm thinking my leg's probably too thin. So I'm going to go to the poly cylinder radius, and let's do a radius of 3. That's probably fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to taper these legs. So I'm going to have the leg get skinnier as it goes to the top. And the way I'm going to do that, firstly, I'm going to go into face mode. Actually, let me pull this out first. Object mode, I'm going to pull this out from the stool so we can work on it. I'm going to go into face mode. And we're not going to need these caps on the top, and we really don't need the caps on the bottom, but I'm going to leave the caps on the bottom in case we animate the stool later. The caps on the top, the quick way to do it is to marquee select. It'll grab everything, and then hold Control, marquee select across the center, and it will select just the cap. It'll cut that off. And I will look on the bottom, make sure nothing's selected, and I'll delete that off. And that'll work. Let's go into vertex mode. I will grab these, and then with my scaling tool, that's R on the keyboard, I will grab the middle and I will just scale these in. And now we have a leg that tapers a little bit in, which is cool. Okay, there's that. I'm going to go into front mode, front view. I'm going to bring this up. And the way I'm going to do this, you could just hit W and kind of pull this up. I'm going to hold X as I do that, so it snaps cleanly to the grid. And you can see that right here, our vertices kind of go through our model, which isn't a big deal, but I'm OCD and I want these to be in contact with the model. So I'll go into vertex mode, grab my vertices, and hold X and snap. And then for my stool top, actually, that's not going to be a big deal. I was going to be OCD, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my stool top, hold X on the keyboard, and just snap. Well, fine. Be stubborn. So I have that snapped. Vertex mode. Grab these vertices, hold X, and I will snap them down. Just like that. Sometimes the editor gets picky. Alright, I'm going to go into my side view. And here's my leg of my stool. I'm going to pull this leg just under. Now, if you've ever looked at a stool, you know that the legs under there aren't usually straight up and down, unless it's a fancy one and they have like 4 legs and there's like a crossbar. I'm not going to do a crossbar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the edge of this leg just near the edge of this one. And I'm going to do a little bit of a trick here. I'm going to go into vertex mode, select these vertices, and I'm going to pull these guys back like this. And what that will do is it'll give the illusion that this stick is at an angle. Okay? So that's the first leg. I'm going to right click. And before I make the next few legs, I'm actually going to do my UVs of my leg first. So let's go up to UV editor. And this is the UV layout that it gives us by default, which we can use. If I go to edges, this is the edge there. But I want to unfold this just because it's not center. So UVs, double click. Let's do an unfold. And hopefully that'll probably work. Do an unfold on the cap. There we go. Just so we have everything already set and we don't have to worry about modifying anything. Object mode, I will duplicate. I'm going to turn this one around. So I'm going to go down here. I'll drop my UV layout. This one we need to rotate, so I'll hit E to rotate, and I will just go ahead and rotate. I do have my rotate steps on, so my rotation has a little jump of about 15 degrees each rotation. To set that up, just go up to your tool settings. Make sure your rotation tool is selected. Remember E on the keyboard. And then over here under step snap, we have absolute and then 15. And you can change that. By default, it's off. I have mine set to absolute. Okay. And I'm just going to rotate this. And to see this easier, I'm going to go into a top view. If you don't see it, just hit F on the keyboard. It'll frame up, zoom out, and I will go into wireframe. That's 4 on the keyboard, so I can see how this leg looks. So this is the first leg here. And let me go ahead and move Eggy off so we can see. I'll grab Eggy, move tool, and just move him out of the way. This is the front leg, right? So it starts at the edge here and kind of moves back. This one, I'm going to move. This is the front of the object, by the way. So the top of our leg is up here where we cut the faces off. You can see how it's kind of hollow. So this would be the bottom one, and this is the front edge. So I'm going to bring this over here. And I want this, see how this is lined up on the axis here, on this line. I'm going to line this one up on the axis in this 45-degree angle. So get my move tool, or my rotation. I'm going to continue rotating until it is right up on that angle. And I think that's where it is right there. And I will move it. And if it's not turning perfectly for you, you can go in here and fine tune the degrees. Right here it's like 150. This one is at 0. And you can do, we know 180 is all the way around. So 0, what, 90, 180. So in between would be what, 135? Let's do it this way. This looks like it came in at 143.9. I'll try 145. You don't have to be OCD like me, because that should be close enough. And then I will grab this, duplicate, and I will come over to the other side, line that up, select the Y rotation, middle mouse click and drag, and line it up, and that came to 217-ish. So there's 3 little legs. They're not evenly distributed, which is driving me crazy. So I'm going to let my OCD run wild, and I'm going to put it there. Grab this one, I'll put this one. Will that be perfect? It's a little bit more even. There are easier ways to do that. I just took the long route. Okay, 3 legs attached to a stool. And we can do some fancy work. I want to do the UVs on the cap first. So UV editor, the cap for our stool is a little bit different than, because we cut the triangles off. And we actually did not cut the triangles off on the feet. I forgot, sorry. But we're not going to see them, so I'm not going to gripe too badly just yet. So on our stool, we do have a top and a bottom. We could do a cylindrical map and then unfold it, or we can do it the way it's done here. I prefer doing the unfold in this case because we want this to look like it's a continuous piece, not something that's got different sections to it. So I'm going to grab this UV's cylindrical, and it will open this, but this is not perfect because our caps are hidden. So what I got to do is kind of the same thing we did with the sphere, is we need to grab these edges and cut them, and then we want to split it down the middle. So let me grab all this. That's UV mode, double click, do an unfold, and it kind of unfolds gross, right? So what we got to do, grab our edges, and I'm going to grab the edges in this view so I can marquee and just select all the way through, and that should grab the edges on top and the bottom. Polygons, I'm going to go down to cut edges, right click, go to UVs, double click on here, and then unfold again, and that gives us this little belt looking thing. But the belt looking thing isn't very useful, so let's find out where our center cut is. Okay, so it did split along the center, that's good. I'm going to sew this, and I will sew that pair together. Actually, sew this one. So that's together, that's together. This needs to be sewn, and that needs to be sewn. Let me see if I can get this to go clean. So I'm going to grab these in here. Remember, I'm holding Shift in edge mode, and I'm clicking these edges. Polygons, we'll do a move and sew. Polygons, move and sew. And let's see if this will unfold a little nicer for us. It might be a little bit stretched, but I think it'll work. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, now that I have this laid out, I'm going to really quickly grab these legs, and I don't want to do it for each one, so I'm going to try to do it all at once. I'm going to select all three of these, and what I'll do is, with this selected as well, I will combine everything. So go to Mesh, Combine. So it's all one object. We can't paint on the UVs this way, so we need to do a layout. So select everything, Polygons, Layout, and it will lay these out. But we want the stool top to have the most texture space. So I'm actually going to change the way this layout looks. This piece is going to get the most. Which one's the top of the stool? Top of the stool is this side. So I'm going to rotate it back. And then these are going to get less UV space. Shrink that down. That's R on the keyboard to bring up our scaling tool. I'll just put these here. These caps, I will put those down here. This thing's going to get the most UV space. Alright, so now we have our legs, and we have these pieces. We still need to cut off those triangles, so what I'll do, edge mode, and we'll just do every other one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We won't see these, so it's not as crucial. I just want to get into the habit of making sure that we don't work in triangles. If we're making swords or something, then I can kind of ignore it and it doesn't bug me as much. If things have to have a sharp edge, or if it's meant to be a triangle, it doesn't bug me. But these things bug me. And I'm just grabbing every other one and just deleting it off. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong one there. Let me go back. Okay. And our caps don't need to be, they don't have to have a lot of UV space because they don't take up a great deal of real estate. We won't see them. They're going to be on the bottom. I can kind of hide those like way over here. And these things. I'll expand the legs just a little bit. And that should be good enough. If you want to know where each leg begins, you can just space them out. And that should work just fine for the stool. In the next video, we'll do the microphone. I will let you guys texture the stool. We're going to do a wood texture on the stool. If you've already done the door, you know how to do a wood texture, so go ahead and do a wood type texture for the stool. Okay. When we come back, you will see that I will have one, and we will start doing the microphone. All right. Have a good one.